This is the MMA Brief podcast, recapping the world of mixed martial arts every single week, with your host, Brandon Johansson.
Welcome back, the MMA Brief, episode 43, recapping UFC 216, live from Vegas. The fight continued. The pay-per-view still happened despite the tragedy, proving Vegas is strong. It was a card highlighted by the interim lightweight title fight between Tony Ferguson and the Motown phenom Kevin Lee. Two Michigan fellers, 33 years old is Tony Ferguson, 25 years old is Kevin Lee, both coming from Grand Valley State University, a college I'm sure Michiganders are familiar with. We're going to actually start at the Fight Pass prelims, where flyweight John Moraga had a spectacular knockout at 1 minute and 38 seconds of the first round. A fight that I had been calling for potential fight of the night. Bobby Green versus Lando Venata delivered and was awarded fight of the night. Ultimately, a draw. I wasn't mad about it because it was such a good fight all the way up into the finish. There was an illegal strike with a point deduction and ended up being a draw. Great fight. I want to see a rematch. Cody Stamann upset highly touted Tom Duquesnoy by split decision in the feature bout of the FX prelims. In another fight of the night contender, Beneil Dariush and Evan Dunham fought to another draw. Very rare in MMA that you have two draws, but I was actually not mad at either draw because I thought that both fights were spectacular. Evan Dunham versus Beneil Dariush, draw, majority, and a split draw for Bobby Green and Lando Venata, the actual fight of the night. In the next fight, Mauro Romero Barella rear naked choked Kalindra Fahea in the first round. Fabricio Verdum stepped up when his opponent, Derek the Black Beast Lewis, went down after weigh-ins. He weighed in, woke up fight day saying he could not fight. A short-term replacement was sought, and it was Walt Harris, who was scheduled to fight Mark Godbeer on the card. And Fabricio Verdum, the former heavyweight champion, ran through him like nothing. 65 seconds armbar. He's the best submission heavyweight of all time. I would have loved to have seen him against Frank Mir, who's going to make his Bellator debut here shortly. Fabricio Verdum gets the big win and is calling for a title shot. Unfortunately, he's got Francis Ngannou versus Alistair Overeem ahead of him at UFC 218 in Detroit. Alistair Overeem promised a title shot with a win over Francis Ngannou. And if Francis Ngannou can win, guy's been a machine, why not put him in the title spot? So that seems like the real number one contender fight. Fabricio got a win over a short notice opponent. Fabricio is not going to get the next title shot, especially because he got knocked out in the first round against the champion. In the co-main event, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson broke the UFC record for most consecutive title defenses with his fifth round armbar submission of Ray Borg. People are calling it the most spectacular submission in UFC history. Went for a suplex, belly to back, threw him up in the air, and caught an armbar. You won't see it many times. It's very, very hard to do. I mean, I don't even really understand how he pulled it off. Ray Borg survived a lot of tough positions, but obviously the greatest champion the UFC has ever known at this point, Demetrius Johnson, was able to get the fifth round finish in spectacular fashion, setting the stage for Tony Ferguson and Kevin Lee. Joe Rogan pointed out a staph infection on Kevin Lee's left pec muscle. You could see it was a red, irritated spot. He had a really difficult weight cut, failed to make weight initially by less than a pound. The commission gave him an extra hour. Some people scrutinized that decision by the commission, but that's the rules. He made weight his second attempt. The title fight continued, and he looked decent the first 2 rounds, Hit Tony with some shots. Tony's very durable. Then his game plan came into fruition in that 3rd round, got top control. It was very apparent that he was the fresher fighter. He started raining elbows and eventually ended up on his back, but he threw up a very tight triangle choke and forced Kevin Lee to tap out. So the new interim 155-pound champion, Tony Ferguson, if all was right in the world, he should fight Conor McGregor, and that fight would be epic because I favor Tony over Conor McGregor every time. 99 out of 100 probably. Conor might land something against Tony, but Tony's so durable in his ground game, it's light years ahead of Conor McGregor's. If he takes him to the ground, or even if Conor ends up on top on the ground, Tony's going to choke him out. Guaranteed. That's the fight they need to make, Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz. But then once again, he's fighting Floyd, he's doing all these things except for defending his belts. They created this title. Tony's the new interim champion. Everybody wants to see him versus Conor. I cannot wait for that fight, if it ever fucking happens. No fights this weekend, no UFC anyway. The next fight, October 21st, Darren Till versus Cowboy Cerrone. Come back next week, we'll preview that card. Thank you for listening to episode 43. Peace.